You're listening to Food Truck Empire, episode 20.
You're listening to the Food Truck Empire podcast, where we talk about great food, big trucks, and how to launch a profitable food truck business. Here's your host.
Here we go. Food Truck Empire episode number 20, as you just heard. This is your host, Brett. And today I'm thrilled to have the runner-up from Season 4 of Food Network's #1 rated show, The Great Food Truck Race, with us, Michael Swale of Tikka Tikka. Michael shares today how he was discovered for the reality show and provides his tips on going through the approval process on that show, in case you're interested in giving it a go for season number 5. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Great Food Truck Race already, then you know that the winner gets a food truck at the end of the TV show. But the runner-up, well, they pretty much get nada, as far as I understand, aside from all of the exposure on a major television network, of course. Now, right now, Tikka Tikka is running their own IndieGoGo campaign and seeking funding for their truck. And I've linked up to the campaign in the show notes at foodtruckempire.com, and also kicked in a few bucks to their campaign as part of Food Truck Empire's commitment to help fund one new food truck per month every month. I know these guys are definitely very, very deserving of any investment that you make towards their business. And I think you'll hear in the interview later in the episode that these guys are just not going to quit until they get their own food truck and launch their own successful business. Now, one interesting sidebar of news that I wanted to share, I recently did my first interview about the food truck business with the Star-Telegram out of Fort Worth, Texas. They were doing a story on whether or not the food truck industry was too competitive in Fort Worth. And I'll let you know when this show is published online, but it was pretty cool to be interviewed about food trucks as an expert, quote unquote. But it was also pretty nerve-wracking because I'm pretty comfortable being on the other side of the mic on my own podcast, doing the interviews and asking all the questions, doing the editing afterwards and making everything sound cool. And this was a little bit out of my comfort zone because, well, I'd just never been interviewed by a newspaper before, so it's a little bit stressful, but also fun at the same time. I'll let you guys know as soon as that's been published online so that you can go check it out too. I think that's pretty cool. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's interview after a brief word from our sponsor. Need capital for your food truck or mobile food business? Check out foodstart.com, the crowdfunding website that serves the food industry. You'll also be eligible to receive $1,000 in bonus seed capital just for listening to the podcast. Head to the Fund Your Truck page at foodtruckempire.com for details. This is the best place to seek capital for your business online. Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining the call with me today. Obviously, Michael, you're from Tikka Tikka, runner-up of Season 4 of the Great Food Truck Race, and you're currently raising capital for your food truck on IndieGoGo.com. But before we get into the main questions that I had to ask you, let's just get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in the food truck business in the first place.
Sure, Brett, no problem at all. I don't know if I would even venture to say that I'm really part of the food truck business quite yet. I'm more trying to be at this point. This kind of all started probably about 8 years ago. My senior thesis in college was a business plan for a fast casual Indian restaurant, believe it or not, kind of right when fast casual was really becoming what it is. Years went by. We didn't have the money, didn't have the time, didn't have the resources. I went to Santa Clara University in California, moved to Texas for a couple years, got brought up to St. Louis. I worked for Citibank up here. And really what kind of started us down this road more concretely was my brother being deployed to Afghanistan and then returning home. And upon his return home, he decided to come live with me in St. Louis. My entire family is out in California. When he decided to come live with me here, he had just got back from war and had a tough time finding, I guess, what you'd call meaningful work, compared to what he had been doing. And so we decided together, since he had time on his hands and I had, some resources, not really much, but at least enough to kind of get the idea in motion, we decided that it was the time to take a stab at it. And at that time, we actually tried an IndieGoGo campaign back then. This was a year ago. And, we didn't end up raising as much money as we had liked, and so we weren't really able to take the next step with it. But in the process of doing that, we were contacted by the casting producer for the Great Food Truck Race, who had happened upon that video.
Wow.
And one thing led to another, and a whole lot's changed in the last year.
So if you wouldn't have put up that first IndieGoGo campaign that ultimately failed, quote unquote, at least in terms of getting you capital, that casting person from the Great Food Truck Race wouldn't have seen you and set the next steps of events in your life forward.
Right. It's kind of living proof that you just never know what's going to happen if you put yourself out there, I guess. It was, the campaign ran about the same timeline as it's running now. I think it finished up in either November, December of last year. And it wasn't until the end of February that we heard from the casting producer. So there was some time there between the end of the failed campaign and the beginning of kind of the next chapter.
Yeah. So walk us through this process a little bit. Obviously, you put up the Kickstarter campaign. You got a call from the casting director. What happened after that point? Was it a series of interviews, or what did you have to do after that?
A lot.
Yeah.
It was a pretty grueling 3-month process. And, from what we heard and what we've seen, they get over 1,000 applicants of teams to be on this show. And they're pretty scrutinous with how they go about selecting someone. Kind of the one thing you have to have is a story that people care about, I guess. I'd say that's probably the number one most important thing, because, they're really doing you a favor by giving you this publicity, putting you on the show, and rightfully so. Their end goal is to make great TV, which I think they certainly succeeded doing. But in order for them to do that and to really justify, giving you the opportunity, they really want to know that you're good people, have a good idea, and that you have a story behind you that people are going to buy into. And I guess they thought that we had those 3 things. But yes, to answer the specifics of the question, there was plenty of interviews. There were Skype interviews. There were phone interviews. We had to submit a couple different audition videos. And then finally we got down, I think, to 25 teams when 8 actually get on the show, and then the actual producer himself makes the final cuts. That's my understanding anyway.
Obviously, your story and the story of you and your brother connected with the folks over there enough to, eventually get you on the TV show. And obviously you guys went really, really deep into this show. And I won't talk too much about that process, since obviously it's all already documented online. But ever since you got off the show, in what ways has the Great Food Truck Race changed your life?
In a lot of ways. I've never been so involved in social media since we got halfway through that race as I have been since then. Most of my day is spent trying to manage an Instagram, Twitter, Facebook account. I haven't even done anything with Pinterest yet, but I know I probably need to. And it's become, whereas this was an idea before that we were kind of waiting to take off and making small steps. Now people know about this idea, and really my job until we've raised the capital is to keep people engaged in it, and so that they don't forget about it, and so that when we do finally get to that next step, we have people who are still waiting to try our food, because most of the country hasn't got to try it yet. So my life has gone from maintaining one job to completely maintaining 2 jobs. We're just fine, and I've never talked to so many random people as in the last 3 or 4 months. So, nobody would ever recognize me, and now, it's still not a lot of people recognizing me, but random people will stop and say, "Hey, good job on the show. You guys did great." And it's fun.
Yeah. So you're obviously trying to build buzz for your IndieGoGo campaign and, promote your business more. And you also have a full-time job too, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I'm lucky.
How do you juggle those 2 things?
It just takes up a lot of the day. But I'm lucky enough to have a good full-time job that I enjoy, and it pays the bills. And so It's never been out of, it sounds strange, right? Because we live in a capitalist country, and at the end of the day, everybody needs and wants to make money. But this whole, what is now a side business, Tikka Tikka Taco, and hopefully one day is much, much more than that. It's never been really driven by financial needs so much as it's been just people like our food, and we enjoy making it, and we enjoy giving it to people, and we enjoy people's reactions when they try it. And we had that was our favorite part of the race by far, was when people tried our food for the first time, and they would wait in line for an hour to try it, and we were charging game show prices, not real life prices. And at the end of the day, nobody complained because they loved the food and they loved the experience. And that was just, really kind of gives you a different perspective on things. But that's kind of why we're doing this. Because I'm relying on my job to kind of just make ends meet at this point. We don't have any excess capital to kind of do it without some help. And so that's the point of the IndieGoGo campaign. And when you're trying to start a business on IndieGoGo, it's almost awkward a little bit, because, I don't need charity to survive, and IndieGoGo, you're asking people for money, and it's almost like a charity situation. Now, granted, you are giving them perks in return, and so hopefully they're getting value for the money they donate, but you are really asking for donations. And it's kind of awkward because I don't need that to survive, but I do need that in order to launch this business. And so that's really what it's focused on.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your campaign and how much you're seeking to raise, and what specifically you're hoping to put the funding towards? Obviously, a big part of it's going to be the truck, but there's obviously a ton of other expenses that are related to that when you're launching a food truck business.
That's a great question. So I was able to, first question everybody usually asks me is, well, why can't you just go get a small business loan? And it's, well, without revenue, there's, not a whole lot of people who are willing to lend, not a lot of organizations, I should say, that are willing to lend you money. But we were able to, through a small business kind of incubator program, we were able to get a $30,000 loan. So what I'm asking for on IndieGoGo is another $30,000, because the average truck these days costs about $60,000. So the loan plus the $30,000 that I hope to raise from IndieGoGo would really pay for the truck. Now, to get the truck that I have in my mind, it would really probably cost closer to $80,000. So we kind of have a stretch goal built in there to hopefully get a little bit more than the $30,000, but the $30,000 is the minimum goal, because that's what I can partner with the other $30,000 that I have through that loan and actually finally get a truck. Now, you're right, there's a ton of other startup costs involved, and that's where I'm kind of hoping to find a partner along the way who's willing to buy into the vision and help us get started, because we have this experience. We know we can run a truck, but it would be nice to have some more talent on the team in terms of people with experience running a food truck in St. Louis. That's ultimately what I'm looking for, and hopefully that person would have some money to invest as well. And so that's what I'm keeping my eye out for as well.
Well, I think it's great that you guys obviously aren't giving up, and you're leveraging that exposure that you got on the Great Food Truck Race to launch your IndieGoGo campaign. And you guys are definitely extremely determined, and I'm very, very confident that you guys will wind up getting a truck one way or another.
That's kind of my motto is, I really hope the IndieGoGo campaign works out. But, so far we're looking for 30. That's our goal by Thanksgiving. And we got to 10. So we're a third of the way there in about half the time. So we're a little bit, I guess, behind pace, but there's still a good shot. But either way, I really want to make this idea happen, because I think it's a good concept. I think it'll do well. I think it'll stand up over time. And I think we've been given an opportunity here, thanks to the Food Network and thanks to the production company for the Great Food Truck Race, to where, a lot of, you hear it in the news, you read statistics, a lot of, especially restaurant-related small business startups don't make it. And we are blessed with this opportunity to have the amount of exposure that we have. And so it would really be a waste not to do something with it,
Last question before I let you go. If you had one piece of advice that you could give to folks that, say, wanted to be potentially on the Great Food Truck Race, what would that piece of advice be? And I know you've got into the story specifically first, which might be the big one, but just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I would say again, because it's that important, that don't discount